Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have a special guest on my channel. Please introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Maria James-Thiaw, and I'm the author of the new book, Count Each Breath.
All righty. And what is that? What is your genre and what attracted you to that genre?
Oh, I'm a poet, and I've enjoyed writing poetry since I was a little kid. My dad was a poet too, and it's just a genre that I love. I've written stories, but I really haven't pursued writing fiction yet. And so just poetry is my thing, and I enjoy performing poetry as well.
Okay. What made you decide to write this book?
Well, I definitely felt that we needed to document this moment in the what we were going through in 2020 was definitely historic and something that in the future people need to know what we went through. And God, hope they don't repeat it.
Man.
Yeah, but also I just felt it was cathartic for me to get the word out, to be able to talk about the stress that I was going through in a creative way. So it was very helpful that way.
What is the difference between a professional spoken word poet versus an on paper poet?
Okay, that's a really good question. So in the I would say like 20 years ago, like people would argue and say spoken word is not poetry, and I hope that they've gotten over that
Mhm.
by now. Maybe like Amanda Gorman would be an example that would show them that it is it is poetry. But with spoken word, it is formed more for the sound and for the stage, for the performance. So
Okay.
you might,
Okay.
as you're writing, think about how something will sound, like how if I stretch out that e in a certain way.
Mhm.
Pardon me, my voice is cracking today, but you would think more about for the audience and for the sound of it. You're still going to use like metaphors and similes
Mhm.
and things like that, but your diction might be less formal too. So kind of like rap music or slang would be in there, things like that. Whereas like page poets have a tendency to be a little more formal at times. It depends on the person really, but um there it you're always concentrating on uh how it reads, how it looks on the page, that sort of thing, a little bit more than the spoken word poet is.
Okay. How does this book compare with your other poems you have written?
I feel like I keep getting better the more I practice, the
Mhm.
more I write, I hone my craft more. And early it's not as much, well, some of my early work would be more like church based when it comes to spirituality.
Mhm.
There are some spirits in this book, but they're not necessarily like, it's not as like organized religion based, right? So you there's like a poem about being at a funeral and hearing the dead person laugh. There's a poem about a story my dad told me about seeing two shadow men fighting over his soul in a field in Georgia. So it's like it's a little different.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think my writing has become more vivid, more clear, more images.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Who is the artist audience you're writing for?
I think that I think a lot of people could relate to this, but I really target African American women.
Mhm.
I think that those of us that have gone through any might be able to relate to this, and I do think that white ladies as well, because I think any woman,
Mhm.
when you go to the doctor, you really want them to pay attention to you and hear you and everything. And any woman, I think, can experience that kind of dismissal from a medical professional because
Mhm.
of those assumptions that we are hysterical, that we are we're making things up, or we're too emotional and things like that. So I think that happens to any woman.
Mhm.
But I will say that the healthcare disparities against African American women have been so intense that women have died because doctors didn't believe they were in pain,
Yeah.
or didn't believe that it was an emergency, thought we were more thick skinned or something like that. And that happened to me as well.
Mhm.
So I really think that anyone, in fact, I just sold a book to a gentleman that has lupus. No, he has MS. And he said that that was his experience too, that they just didn't listen when he talked about his pain.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that's very common. That's why the opioid crisis had a less of an impact on the African American community, because we couldn't get the opioids. They thought we were all drug users. So man, it was hard to get a Tylenol during
Mhm.
that period.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
but un, white communities, I mean, they were wiping out whole towns. So it's really, I think it's really something that people that have experienced chronic illness can really relate to.
Mhm. You were once a writing professor. Tell us how the writing academics is different from writing mainstream for a mainstream audience.
Oh, well, one thing is, when you publish and for academics, and you're working an academic job, um they don't value indie publishing on the same level as traditional publishing.
Mhm.
So you always have to go with traditional publishers. Um, that often could block out women writers, people of color. Traditionally, it's been harder for us to get published. But yeah, you have to think of it that way. And if you, let's say, I mean, I met indie publishers that have published 30 books, but academics would snub their nose at that. That doesn't matter because it's independent. And I hope that that's going to be changing.
Yeah.
But right now, that's still the case. So, but you may have some genius writer who just publishes their own stuff
Mhm.
and wouldn't be elevated like the certain professor of so and so, at some big institution. So that's a something that we need to work on. The industry needs to work on.
What's the biggest takeaway you hope readers get from your poetry?
Well, I want to create awareness about the differences that in healthcare disparities and how
Mhm.
that impacts African American women and other communities, and that's the big thing for me. Just like open your eyes to see that there is some white privilege. It's a
Mhm.
real thing. That there is illicit bias, and I'm just showing it to them, just making them aware.
You're also a playwright. Tell us about your next project.
Oh my, I'm so excited. It's called Hair Story. And again, creating awareness about how we are impacted as people with African hair textures. So we're those locked coily um, wavy haired people. Unfortunately, we've been told that we are unkempt or unclean or unprofessional. And it has been a way for white supremacy to attack our people and close doors in our faces. So we are trying to get Pennsylvania to recognize the Crown Act um, and stop that kind of discrimination from happening.
Mhm.
Um, so my play, Hair Story, Reclaiming Our Crown, is about one woman just trying to find a love of herself and her um, coily, kinky hair.
Yes, yes, yes. How did you get started or get your interest in theater?
Well, as a kid, I was in theater clubs at school and
Mhm.
did some plays. I always wanted to be like the main person, but I never really got those roles because it was odd. It was like the 80s and 90s, and you're like the only black person there, and people were really stuck. Not like today where you know you'll be in like jolly old England in 1492 and
Mhm.
have a black person playing the queen. Like it was different back then. We did not cross the color line, so it was hard. But I have always enjoyed theater. And when it came to writing, I feel like I feel like my ancestors, my aunties and grandma who have left here gave me that idea and pushed me till I just started doing it because it was just crazy. But I interviewed women about their memories of the civil rights era.
Mhm.
And then I wrote those into poetry and then strung that all together into a choreo poem. And now I'm doing it with Hair Story too. I've been interviewing women about their experiences with their hair and just weaving it together into this story for the stage.
Now tell us about how you develop a choreo poem.
Say that again.
Tell us how you develop a choreo poem.
Okay, so you definitely I the way I do it is through listening to the stories and then I say translating it into poetry. So bringing in the imagery, the flow, the musicality, um bringing just kind of like sometimes someone will say something in a way that catches my ear and I might have that repeat through the poem. I had one lady I interviewed, she kept saying, I seen them done this and this and this. And so that became like the line that just kept being repeated, like I seen it blow, I seen them do this. It became part of the poem. So I really have so much fun with it. And now the first one I did, the women were between ages of 65 and 95. So some of them have passed on, and it's been such a blessing to give the poem to their family, you
Mhm.
know, and they'll be like, wow, I didn't know mom did this, or, it's really been a blessing to work with all those women.
Hmm. How has being a poet and a playwright blend together in your work?
Well, I can bring personal experience to my creative writing classes and be a model for my students,
Mhm.
um, model the writing life for my students. So it's been really helpful.
Okay. Tell us a little about your 501 Reclaim the Artist. How did it get started?
Okay, so Reclaim Artists Collective is what it's called, and we're working on getting our 501c3. and it started after my play Reclaiming My Time was performed at Central Penn College, where I'm visiting today. I'm visiting Central Penn. Yeah, Central Penn College, Capital Blue Cross Theater is where it was first performed. And we had 6 sold out shows. It went really, really, really well. And after that, the director and I put our heads together and I was like, what if? And so we did have, we started in February of 2020. So once the pandemic hit, like I got really down. I'm just like, ugh. We were planning on doing another play actually about autism.
Mhm.
But it just was like all the theaters were closed. Like, and we had no idea, we had no idea when it was going to open up again. So things just really slowed down, and that's why we didn't have the 501c3 already, because we just stopped meeting and stuff. But now we are back at it, and I'm so excited. We were issued a grant to do Hair Story from TFEC, and we have like a partnership with the Harrisburg chapter, Harrisburg, PA chapter of the Links Incorporated. And there'll be some of the beautiful ladies parading through the the stage during Hair Story. And things are going really well. And we just got our first intern. So I'm really excited about where Reclaim Artists Collective can go, and what we can do, how we can bring affordable arts programs to the community.
Wow. What's one thing that you absolutely love about being a poet and a playwright?
I get this intense feeling when I have written something and it's done and I know it's done. Like, I will like slam my pen down and push away from the table and be like, boom, like I know it's done.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
also when I recite something, I just love it. Just being behind the mic. And I just call it feeling alive. I just really feel alive then. And people will tell me like, this is you. This is like what you're meant to do. Because so many times I've had to do like clerical work or like, pushing paper.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
but when I'm reading poetry and writing poetry, I feel alive. So I just have to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that make it difficult?
Good question. I would say distractions in life sometimes
Mhm.
can get in the way, like the demands of family life.
Right.
Um, and you have, as any woman is stretched in multiple directions,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
also with teaching. So sometimes, there's so much work to do with teaching. People think teaching's easy because, oh, you have the summer off and you get off at 3 o'clock and all this. Um, there is never a time I didn't take work home. Teaching is definitely hard work. It's like a 24/7 job. And then I've got young boys at home too. So there are times when it's really hard, but you know who influences me? I'm really inspired by Lucille Clifton. When she got her first Pulitzer Prize nomination, she had 6 kids and she would only write during nap time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and you got nominated for a Pulitzer. You know what? I'm going to keep going.
Yes, 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 yes. If you had the opportunity to bring your productions to any place, where would you take them?
Probably New York City. Um, the 2 places in my mind are New York City and Paris. I'd bring them to the world, you know?
What do you think your role is in the literary industry?
Mm, that's really interesting. It's like there's a lot of different ways to be a poet these days.
Mhm.
You could be like spoken word. We used to have spoken word venues in every small town in PA and multiple in Philly and Pittsburgh. And I would go all over the state. And now, like with button poetry and what is it called? What if poetry, I think. I might be saying that wrong. But basically, a lot of it is on the internet. And then it's like, how many views do you get? And you got poetry talk and all these different, poets of Instagram. And it's really a new game. And I'm learning that game right now.
Mhm.
It's different.
Mhm.
Ooh,
What has been your greatest accomplishment thus far in your literary career?
wow. I think reclaiming my time because it created so much awareness. It made people connect with their elders. Um, it connected the civil rights activism of the 50s and 60s to the modern day Black Lives Matter movement. And I was able to share that with so many people. And then during the pandemic, we turned it into a Zoom play and we did it for the Methodist churches in our area, and for at CASA, Capital Area School for the Arts, we did it, and we were able to share it that way. So I just feel like that was a really huge accomplishment.
Yes,
And
yes. Where can we find you and your books?
okay, anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, .com. You can also, if you're in the Harrisburg area, you can go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. We have elementary coffee, a nice little coffee shop on, I think it's North Street. And then we Midtown Scholar Bookstore, and also at the Lebanon Valley Farmers Market. So there's a lot of little places around, but also Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close?
If people want to follow me on Twitter, it's Maria the Poet. And I also have a WordPress site, Maria the Poet. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so they'll be able to find me.
Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.